Okay, welcome back. Now this is a little bit of prep today for Project Bandit. It's just going to be this stuff, which, as we said in the last video, we saved £60 from buying the raw materials. This, just to repeat again, these 2 feet lengths, 3 of them, which is like that top section, 3 lengths of 3/16 steel came to just under £9. It was £8.90 for 3 pieces, and I need about 10. So here, for £7 lousy, I bought a clothes washing line doodah thingamabob from a charity shop, and I'm going to cut it up and prepare it. So today's mission has nothing to do with the bike. I just want to get the materials prepped so that I can start looking at how I'm going to make it and conceive it. I want to give the matte black 24 hours to dry before I start bolting stuff underneath, and this seems as good a job as do to any. It's got to be done, so I might as well get it done. So it's a case of lopping these off with a disc, stripping off the plastic with a standing knife, and then where is any little notches, just lapping them over so that they're ready. Just preparing this clothes drying frame into a pile of raw material that we can use to make the tailpiece with. Also this little frame, I think this is I said last time, it's some sort of chair, deck chair, bed, stair gate, whatever it is, but it's got this rather handy steel, this is steel wire, it's about 3mm thick, and that will have a use when I'm coming to make the frame for shaping and so on, and it's definitely useful. And the fact that it's powder coated is brilliant, because where I'm going to tack weld it, just rub that little bit of paint off and I haven't got to worry about painting it, so it even comes protected, which is just brilliant. So there we are, stick around, stay tuned. This is all about a little bit of destruction, and I enjoy that. Let's make some noise and some sparks, see what happens. First of all, these little plastic ends all just got to come off, just to separate everything. Get it into 3 separate bits. And use it. Funny thing was, we did see a new one of these for sale, and it was more or less the same money, about £8 or £9, but it was a lot smaller and thinner, flimsier. This is an old 70s one, quite a lot more robust for the money. And the ultimate recycling, eh, Pen?
Yeah, she didn't think so.
The lady in the charity shop wasn't impressed. She thought she was selling a really nice, worthy piece of kit to use. And she was. Just not for what she expected it to be used for. Just getting all the extra bits off you don't need. There it is.
For your Elton son.
Seems that wherever you stand, you're getting sparking. 4 lengths of what I think is 3/16 steel, and 1 length double the size. And I'll leave it that length just for, I can bend that. I need some longer length, so there's 2 of those. And there's 1 done. Right. Let's do the second one. And go. That's got all of those. Check that out. Now that, it comes to mind, or it comes clear even more when you see it in its final form. And the idea is now just to take a blade and cut this coating off. It's just a plastic coating, a typical domestic plastic coated steel, which should be quite easy to get off. Doesn't stick that well, and it's old. It's been around for a long time. There it is. Here we are. Here we are. Straightforward bit of raw steel. And obviously the cost of this stuff, if you were to go and buy it, when you see a metal, you're going to have something fabricated, and you think that it's just the fabricator charging a fortune. Perhaps you could then consider that it's not. It's actually, sometimes the materials are just ridiculous. And this is a perfect example of that. Just 3 pieces of this were nearly £10, and that's quite expensive when you consider I needed, well, to be honest, I don't know how many I needed. I don't really have a they just love Stanley knives. They're always scary. There, that's what I wanted to get to. Now that, just that alone would have cost just under £9. And when I start making this tail, as you can see how much it's going to eat, I want to start using this as a frame. Come on, round the side.
I can't.
It's going to go from there further back, which is the longer ones. You know, there's a lot of it. 3 pieces are not even going to come close. So I'm going to need probably all of this and the other stuff that's in there. So I'm going to strip all the plastic off this. It's a bit laborious, a bit long-winded, but it does the job, and it will get, so I'll be careful I don't cut myself. That's it. And hopefully
I get told off for pulling the knife towards you.
Running with scissors, yeah, definitely. I like it really, you know, because it shows that everyone cares really about me, and I think that's very touching. I usually get some sort of safety advice in every video, which is very kind of you. I do appreciate it. And if you didn't love me...
We're not joking, we're not naughty. We are careful.
Well, maybe.
I am.
Well, it was my brother actually who nearly cut his thumb off with one of those, and he's a paramedic. You couldn't write it, could you? There you go. Don't do as I do, do as I say. Right, join me when I've done a few more. Just look at that. Even Ray Mears would be pleased with that. I mean, this is devilishly therapeutic, it really is. This is very satisfying to buy something from a charity shop for just a couple of pounds, and for it to reveal under the skin the raw materials you need that would have cost you over almost £70, and you've done it for a tenth of the price. That truly does mean something, and it's the kind of thing that you dine out on when you talk about your project. You talk about your bike when it's finished. You tell people that you got all the steel for the under tray from an old clothes washing line. It's just incredible, and it's the sort of thing that you enjoy. It makes it all the much more fun. When you see these programs like American Hot Rod and so on, and they just go to the parts bin, or OCC, you watch American Chopper, which is really just a program about a dysfunctional family and their poor, beleaguered staff. There's one guy that works for OCC, or he may no longer work, I don't know, a bloke called Rip Petco. He was the most incredible fabricator, a legend, and somebody who I could sit and watch all day and all night. He could just take 2 sheets of metal and TIG weld them together like there was no join and no ripples. The guy is an absolute genius in the industry, and him and the likes of him are the driving force behind these programs, these makeover programs. Certainly the likes of the Tottles themselves, they're not particularly clever people. They don't have any other skill than how to show off and present a show that's entertaining. But for technical reasons, I used to watch things like Monster Garage with Jesse James, because you get to see stuff actually made that's unique. But all of those people, all of them without fail, they will just walk over to the stock shelves where they have hundreds of lengths of steel like this, big pipes and tubes, and you just see them take the tube and make something from it. But you have no idea what it costs, what that stuff actually costs in commercial money, until you go and try and buy it yourself when you're doing your own project. And in this sense, by the way, I put some gloves on because Penny was moaning. In this sense, you see it.
I was doing my health and safety checks.
My risk assessment. I should put a high vis on, really, shouldn't I? Should I? No. And that's the point I'm making, is that you don't realise what the cost of these things is until you start buying it for yourself. And as Penny said quite rightly, projects have a habit of spiralling out of control. The costs just get ridiculous in the end. And when you look at something that's been built by yourself, you feel very proud of it, but nevertheless you always have that kind of secondary thought, that wound that never really heals, that scar that's left behind of the cost of the ridiculous expense that thing's cost you since you started it. A very good friend of ours was building a shovel-head chopper for many years. It was an ongoing project for probably a decade. In the end, he just got sick of the fact that every time he wanted to move on a stage, he had to find another £1,000 for stuff. And you can't do it. In the end, you're easier just going to the dealer and buying a new bike. So I think he flogged it, lunched some savings, and went and bought a Rocket Free, and he's just enjoying himself and riding around on that. So it just goes to show, if you're going to build a project, sometimes this kind of thing, to me, this is the crowning glory of what it's about. If you can do it all cheaply for next to nothing, then it makes it all the more enjoyable. So there we are, that's that. All that's done. It took all the burrs off the end, so they're now able to be handled, because you know it's like when you're handling steel and stuff that you've cut. All nice clean ends on them now. I'm just going to clean them up with a little bit of paper. But before I get into those, same on them, all cleaned up nice and neat. It's these next ones now. These are, like I said earlier, I'm not sure what this thing is. Maybe you can tell me. It's sort of got a stand, that end. I think it's some sort of gate or whatever.
I think it's a broken clothes dryer.
You reckon?
I think it's supposed to have another bit on the top.
Yeah, probably. It's quite hard steel. That's better.
Sports bike, can you hear him?
Yeah, we've got a big main road not too far from here, which obviously is playground. Go for a play later. And just cut these out, and these will make the finer ones for the cage, which will mean that it can follow a shape, a decent shape, without having to have too much filling. I actually don't really want any filler on it at all. What I might do is something that quite a few people have suggested on the tailpiece, which is use a spray-on filler or filler primer. I might use that over the tailpiece just to give it a sort of smooth finish, but it's the fiberglass that I'm going to use on it will be enough, and then fill over it. Effectively what it's going to be, I mean, we'll get there when the time comes, but it's going to be a plug as much as anything else, because when you make a fiberglass panel of any kind, you make a plug first. So you make what you want it to look like in anything, wood, foam, that pink like Oasis stuff that you can carve and shape, all sorts of various things you can use, balsa wood, putting filler over it to finish, and then once it's all done, you take a mould of that, and then you can make more. But this is obviously going to be the finished article, so what I don't want is kilos of filler on it. I want it as thin as possible. I'm going to try and recreate something along the lines of Kevlar, like a thin Kevlar tail panel that will give strength but be really, really light. Not light because the bike's light, but light because then it's not going to crack. You just put masses of filler on something. It's okay for a plug, but it's no good when it comes to it being a panel for daily use, because all that will do is, in itself, it will crack in use because it's too thick and too heavy and too much filler. So it wants to be quite thin. So what I'm waffling on about and going on is that these little tiny thin strips of steel are going to form little reinforcing pieces that I can run between the main parts of the frame to get the curve and the shape exactly how I want it, and make it effectively a little tiny steel skeleton of thin stuff. I mean, this is really thin. That's painted and it's only 3mm thick, but it's steel, and when I need to weld it, I just rub this whatever this coating is, some sort of enamel painting, I'll just rub it off where I need to weld it, and that will be fine. So that's that. There we are. Look at that lot. I don't know what that would have cost, but it wouldn't have been free, and that's exactly what it was. Completely free. So they go down there. These ones seem easier just to break out. Now I'm going to leave that central piece, just going to leave it welded up, because I don't know whether I want it cut there, that way, or whether I want their full length. So I don't know yet. So all I'm doing is just taking off the big tubes that I don't need. And they will go, I mean, they're thin, like you wouldn't believe, probably about 1/2 mm thick. But as long as they're steel, which they are, they will go over there. And there we are. That is the sum total of that little scavenging exercise. Absolutely, well, £7, and that's definitely enough steel to do the job of the tailpiece with. The other thing, which I'm going to need obviously, is once the frame's made, the idea of this is like you've been asking about it, that's why I'm dwelling on it this time rather than just leaving it till it comes up, is what we're going to use to make it from, what it's going to be covered with, and asking about the tail. So just going to cover it a little bit, that's all. The frame there, that will just be a wire frame. I'll weld, once these are threaded, bolt a washer through, and then once the washer's bolted on, I can weld a piece of the frame to the washer, and that starts to make the mounts themselves, which will be fiberglassed over. Now, just wanted to do this as well. This is a bit of a thanks and a shout out. This is my good friend Jeff, Van Rocco66. If you check his channel out, he's built a Harley bother from a 1200 custom into a really cool little bar hopper. It's just about finished now, and he's more or less riding it. It's more or less done and up and on the road. And in the means of it all, he's moving house, and he found what you do. Now I keep all that stuff, and I keep most of the stuff I can store up above. Have a look up there, man. Up Harley exhausts, all sorts of bits, the tubing and pieces. And in the end, you gather it over years. You just gather stuff. I've got it all over the roof, and you just accumulate it, and sometimes you don't need it. You think, no, don't need that, chuck it out, but you'll always find someone else needs it, and that's what Jeff did. So I want to say thanks to Jeff, just online. What he sent me was a big old bag of fiberglass. I will be using fiberglass on the job, and some of this rather cool fiberglass matting, which will be, hopefully, I want to try and make that kind of Kevlar look out of it, using that and some cotton sheet and resin and so on, and make something that's a little bit different and unique. And these materials do really cost. They do add up. I've got a couple of little tiny packets of fiberglass I've had for many years, which I've had under the bench, but this is a big quantity of it, and it's going to probably be enough there to make the whole job. So I've got the wire for almost free. A good friend of mine's donated this. He was going to chuck out. He said, you know, it's going in the dumpster if you don't want it. So thanks very much, I'll have that. And that's what it's all about. That's what I think the whole garage gang thing is. When the guys who build hot rods in the garage gang, they help each other out as well, and that's what it's all about. So there we are. Thanks, Jeff, for that. That's going to be going on the back of the bike to make the tail unit from this, whatever you call that, fibre matting, is a little bit more posh and a little bit more luxurious than the regular fiberglass matting, so that will go as the top surface, and some cotton sheet for rest. But you'll see all that as time goes on. So that's it for now. That was number 14. Just prepping the metal. I've got all the materials there now, which is great because up here it makes you feel good. You know all the materials are there. I've got a big box of washers and stuff. Again, the sort of thing you do is washers and fixings over the years. Big washer like that, bolted on, then you weld the frame to that. You'll see as time comes. There you go. That was it. That was number 14. That's dried okay now. Pretty much ready to start running the wiring, get the back in. We're moving forward. Thanks for all your support, always appreciate it. So ride safe, take care, we'll see you next time.